Getters and setters. Getters and setters are basically a way to manipulate private attributes outside of a class. I will show you how to create them, but first I want to show you another way to create a class in Eclipse. The class we will create in this lesson is called person. Let's call it person P, new person. As you can see, it gives me an error. As you can probably see, there is no class named person. What we can do is hover the name person, and click create class person. From the quick solution menu pop-up they have, I click it, and then this window pops up and I click finish, and here is my person class. So person will have two private attributes, a name and an age. The name will be string, and the age will be an int. In Eclipse, you can create getters and setters the hard way by writing them yourself, or you can be lazy and do it much more faster. You go to source and click generate getters and setters, and then you will have this menu, and here is our two attributes, age and name. We have two tick boxes. Put a V inside each of them and click OK. That's it. And that's how getters and setters look like. What they are is basically get name returns name, set name gets the name from the argument of the method, and then sets it as a name. This is referring to this object, this instance of a person, but it can also work without the this. It's the old way of doing things. In Java these days you can use that, but because it used the name in the argument, it has the same name. So it doesn't know, the compiler doesn't know that this refers to these attributes, and this refers to the value we get from the argument. That's why I told you never use the same name for two different purposes or two different variables. So if we write here 2 and 2, it's okay. Now it knows that this refers to that one, and this one refers to the value from the argument. So this basically tells it it's not the value from the argument. That's only in the scope of this method. It's the value age from the attribute. So basically, as I said, you use them to manipulate attributes as if they were public, but not really. They're not public. You can't use, let's say, p.name. You will get it. Oh, it already corrected me. It gave me the getter for the name. You can't do that. You will have an error. The field person name is not visible because it's private. So how do we manipulate it outside of the class? Simply, we use getName to get the value, but let's say I want to set the name. So I will change the G to S, and now I need to give it a value, Joe. So now the name in this instance of person class is Joe. And let's set the age, p.set age. And let's give him an age of 22. So now we set the values to Joe and 22, the name and the age, using the setters. This set name and this set age. And now I want to print both of them. So how do I get the values? The name I will do p.get name, and let's add an empty string for space, and let's add the p.get age. So here we output the name by using getName. We increment an empty string with a space, and then we increment the age too. So basically this one returns an int which holds the value of name, return name. It's actually a string. It returns the string name, which comes from the attribute name using getName. And getAge does exactly the same thing. It returns the age. Let's run it. Joe 22. So now we have a hidden layer of attributes that can only be manipulated using methods. At first glance you may think, why use so much boilerplate code just for these two lines where you can change it to public, and you can do the same. You can set it, you can get it, which is correct. You can do that instead. But consider this scenario. You have 300 files that use the person class. And then in the middle of production, you want to make a validation for the age, that it can't be over, let's say, 100 for some reason. How do you do that? Do you go into each of the 300 files and start, adding ifs and or a validation method, or if you created a validation method and you need to add one line, so you need to add 300 lines now. But if it was a private attribute and can only be accessed by using these two methods, you can do something like this. You can put a validation here if age is bigger than 100, age is equals to 100. So now you can't put an input. Well, you can put an input that is larger than 100, but what will happen is that it will go here and it will set it to 100 maximum. So now in all of the 300 files you used set age, this condition will take effect. While, let's say, if you didn't use getters and setters, and the attribute was public, and your team or whoever wrote these 300 lines of code would have used the age directly, you couldn't have done this. You would have needed to copy this line like 300 times, which is insane. So this is a very, very simple practical example of why you need to use getters and setters. There are many more. Some claim you don't need to expose any of your class attributes, but it's up to you. You need to decide how you design your code. So this is another option to design and maintain code. And yeah, there's not much to say about it. It basically does the same as public. You can set the variable value, you can get the variable value, that's it. Yeah, and the reason I gave you like validation or something is a very good one. You might even want to validate for errors or validate for other stuff or do calculations or even complex algorithm. This way, using getters and setters can give you a better way to control your code, to make it more modular, if you would like. Let's give it a try. Let's write 222. You will see that the age will be 100. It can't go over 100, so it turned this 222 to 100. And that's it for this lesson.